Greetings, MGMT 300 Principles of Management students. This is Dr. Stephen Jaros. So now you know what I look like. You know, the professor for this course. I'm an old man, but I have been teaching this class for a while, so I do know a thing or two about principles of management. I just wanted to, provide a little bit of supplementary information. Information that will complement kind of the first couple chapters of what was assigned in the book. For example, chapter 1, you're learning about what management is all about and who managers are. You're learning about things like the roles that managers play, the skills that managers need to have in order to be effective. Also, the kind of work that different levels of managers do within organizations, like top managers, middle managers, lower level managers. And that's great. Okay, that's chapter 1 basically. But I just wanted to add a little more information. And remember, when I do post a video like this, anything I talk about in the video could appear on an exam. When it comes to the course materials that you're responsible for on exams, it's the material that's in the textbook and also anything I say in these videos. So for example, in chapter 1, there is a discussion of management and managers, and that's great. But I would like to dial it back just a little bit and talk about organizations for a moment, because organizations are basically the milieu, or the ocean that managers swim in. If a manager is a fish, then an organization is like the lake or the stream or the ocean that the manager swims in. It represents the environment, the context in which managerial work takes place. All managers function within the context of an organization. So we need to know a couple things about an organization. What is an organization? Well, an organization can be defined as a systematic arrangement of people to accomplish some specific purpose. That's kind of a basic definition of what an organization is. Now we can break this definition down a little bit. I said to accomplish some specific purpose. Well, the idea of an organization having a purpose, this implies that it has goals. Okay, what we're really talking about are goals here. And yeah, that's critical to what an organization is, because organizations don't just materialize out of thin air. They are created by people, and they are created by people when people want to accomplish something that they can't accomplish by themselves. So maybe I want to accomplish a particular goal. Like maybe I have a product that I believe people, maybe I've invented a product that I think people would buy. But, it's not possible for me all by myself to do everything needed to create that product, market that product, produce the product, and deliver it to market. Okay, so I think to myself, well, I'm going to need an organization. I'm going to need to create a business to do this, to accomplish this purpose. Organizations exist to do things that people cannot do all by themselves. Because why hire other people to work for you if you could do something yourself? If you could do it yourself, you could save money. You don't have to pay yourself. You have to pay other people. Okay. Yes, an organization also is a systematic arrangement of people, but of course organizations have other assets as well. Organizations include financial assets. They include technology, plant and equipment. They often own land. They often own intellectual property in the form of trademarks and copyrights and the like. So as a manager, you're responsible for, managing, supervising, and directing and controlling all of those assets, not just other people, but financial assets, plant and equipment, technology, intellectual assets as well. And lastly, the definition talks about organizations as being a systematic arrangement okay, of people. Yeah, and that's important because systematic arrangement means that organizations are carefully constructed. They're not haphazard, at least not if they want to be effective. Systematic arrangement means that organizations have a structure, okay, and that structure defines how the different components of an organization are put together, how they relate to each other in order to accomplish the organization's purpose. And that's one of the key, when you read chapter 1, you learned about the 4 principles of management: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling, or at least, those were introduced to you. Well, that's all about, the organizing function. The organizing function is about providing that systematic arrangement, okay, to accomplish the goal, the organization's goal. And we can also say that organizations have more than one goal. There might be kind of like the overarching goal of the organization. Like maybe I create an organization because I want to get rich, okay? But in order to achieve that overarching goal of getting rich, maybe a lot of other goals, smaller level goals, have to be accomplished to do that. So an organization might have strategic goals at the top. It might have departmental or divisional goals in the middle. And each employee who works for the organization, they may have personal goals or job performance goals that they are required to achieve at the bottom. And we'll talk more about that when we get into the planning function later on in the semester. All right, there's a discussion in the middle of chapter 1 about roles that managers play, and you're introduced to Mintzberg's roles, the interpersonal, informational, and decisional roles. That's important, no question about that. I would just add to it that there are other roles that other management experts have identified. For example, Fred Luthens, a management expert, when he looked at what managers do on a daily basis, he studied managers and what they do on a daily basis, and his research showed that yes, managers do spend a lot of time on carrying out the 4 basic functions. They spend a lot of time planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. But they also do other things as well. One thing managers spend a lot of time doing is communicating. Communication is a very important aspect of managerial work. Managerial work basically involves interacting with other people. And when you interact with other people, you're communicating with them. So managers spend a lot of time communicating. Therefore, they have to be able to develop, those interpersonal skills that chapter 1 discusses. Managers spend a lot of time disseminating and processing information. They receive information, they process it, and then they disseminate that information to other people around them who might need it to do their jobs. Also, managers spend a lot of time on what we might call human resources functions. Now, once again, we'll discuss human resource functions in more detail as we work our way through the book. But for now, we're basically talking about employee relations. Managers spend a lot of their time, according to Luthens, solving problems that arise with employees. A particular employee might have a personal problem. They might have a work-related problem, and they'll bring that to the manager. The manager has to address it. Or maybe there's conflict among employees in the workplace. The manager's job is to address that and resolve the conflict. And finally, managers spend a lot of time doing what Luthens calls networking activities, or engaged in networking activities, by which he means interacting with other people in the organization in order to build their careers, okay, in order to rise up the ladder, the corporate ladder, to positions of higher levels of pay and responsibility and status. Luthens argues that managers spend maybe 30 or 40% of their time on career building activities, trying to interact with colleagues and with upper level managers to try to build their career. And he calls that networking activities. One other thing I would say about the work of managers as it relates to the first couple of assignments that I gave you There is a discussion about the different kinds of work that managers do, depending upon whether they are top level or executive level managers, middle level managers, or frontline supervisors. And again, that material in the book is fine. But I would say that the kind of work managers do also relates to the kind of organization they work in. Okay, specifically, it relates to the size of the organization. Not all organizations are the same size. Some organizations are very large. Meaning they consist of hundreds or even thousands of people. Other organizations, such as small businesses, are, small. They only consist of a handful of people, maybe 2 or 3 people. The owner, the entrepreneur, and maybe 3 or 4 people that he or she has hired, constitute the whole organization. And so I would say that, one of the things we can say about size is that, when organizations are small, if a manager is working in a small organization, like a small business, a lot of their work activity is what we might call outward focus. Rather than being involved in, kind of managing things inside the organization, managing people inside the organization, they spend a lot of their time looking outside the organization. They spend a lot of time trying to raise money from investors. They spend a lot of time interacting with customers. They spend a lot of time interacting with suppliers. They may spend a lot of time interacting with city officials, regulators that they have to maybe acquire permits from to conduct their business. Okay. In contrast, managers who work for very large, complex organizations, for those managers, top-level managers, executives, they tend to have more of an outward focus as well. They tend to deal with the general public and suppliers and customers and entities like that. In contrast, middle-level managers in large organizations, they tend to have much more of an internal focus. They're not really public-facing. They don't spend a lot of time interacting with people outside the organization. Much of their work involves, interacting with other employees, with colleagues and coworkers, with managers above them in the hierarchy and employees below them in the hierarchy. So much of their work is more internal focused. It's focused on what's happening inside the organization. Bottom level managers, frontline supervisors, they tend to have more of a mixed portfolio. Some of their work may be, public facing. Like if you're a supervisor at McDonald's, for example, you probably have to deal with customer concerns or customer complaints while you're running the store. But of course, there's also a heavy internal focus as well. You're managing your employees, you're making sure they're getting their work done properly, you're dealing with payroll, you're dealing with work schedules and the like. So bottom level supervisors tend to have more of a mixture of internal versus external focus. And that discussion, of course, dovetails with assignment number 2, where, in chapter 3, you're looking at organizations and their environments and the kind of work managers do in relation to both the internal and external environments that organizations face. All right. That's about all I want to talk about today in terms of, supplementing the material associated with the first 2 assignments. Remember, you want to review this video carefully because anything I've said in this video, I could test you on as well.